Hello everybody and welcome back to Army Painting Series 13. This is the big finale here, episode 5. Now we've really carried through most of the stuff we wanted to do. A good portion of this will involve things that don't involve metallics. So we want to do stuff like the weapon. Here, let's grab something we can point with over here. Anything that has some glow. The eyes. Just other little touch-up things. If we're going to do any freehand on the destroyer, we'll do that too. So we also got to do our gloss medium over the top of these things like we did on our color test one here, because it just gave it, there's a little difference in the texture there, so that's good. I've also added a few new things to the palette here. So remember we were talking about adding this, the bright yellow green, that's from Creature Caster, Monument, whatever. We also are going to have some of our clear green out here. Yeah, this is for the eyes. It's for the non-metallic stuff. We'll even use a bit of the phthalo green. To me, the candy stuff, it was a trial, and I'd rather use the other things. But speaking of trying, we are going to try this tin metal gray here. It's sort of a like an antique gold, whatever. Of course, the tried and true metal medium. Don't leave home without it. And I just have this ivory color here. The only reason is just to make my lights as light as possible. And as we always talk about the monument stuff, when you're looking for that full-fledged coverage, especially in the lighter stuff like this, not a bad plan to have that on your side, or at least on your palette, like we have over here. So I realized there's been this big shift in plans, kind of going from the candy inks to going, that's just, there's going to be more of this when I try. Obviously, I'm going to try these out some more on other projects, and there will be other twists and turns to it. I can put it that way. Alright, so we got our palette out here. I think we have things pretty well in hand. I think what we'll start with is whatever lights we feel like we need to add. Again, using the Pro Acryl stuff, the clear green, see what we get from that. So we'll be right back in just a second. Let's dive back into this, and like we talked about, I think what we'll mess around with here is I almost went right into the metal medium. We are going to create ourselves a bit of, here, let's make sure we get our fluorescent paint in here too. I'll lose track of that. Let's see if we can't do some opaque things. Here, we're going to mix that white, the ivory together with our fluorescent green. See what happens now when we put that. Oh wow, yeah, so not sure how that's looking on camera, but it is a significant difference for sure. I'm gonna get a bit of my clear green into here, touch of that Pro Acryl. What I'm hoping to do, if I can get this into position here, is get a few of these lighter things down into these crevices that at least are supposed to be glowing. So let's take our clear green here. We're mixing it in with the Pro Acryl, and I'm just gonna, like I said, find myself some more. Maybe even in here, some kind of gentler transitions. I also, off camera, took basically the Army Painter Anti-Shine, went over the top of some areas where the candy stuff was still making some things just too glossy, so we had to get rid of that, and that worked out pretty well. Again, a little more. Just going with some of this clear green here in some spots. Oh, let's try some over here too. Almost as a bit of a semi-glaze type of thing. Now let's see what happens around her eyes here. There. So now if it's just stark light right next to the metal, it'd be less glowing and more like just a white dot. So this, what I was hoping to do there was actually get some kind of separation. But I will try to take advantage. So this is the more of a copper type color, mixing it with a dark silver here. And I realize this is supposed to be about doing greens and everything else. What am I doing? I'm messing around with metallics here all of a sudden. As I've said so many times, when you see an issue, deal with the issue. I don't know if that's exactly what I mean by it, but the whole idea is here, okay, like right here, I need some dark to get separation there. Why not do it right at that moment? So let's compare. Here, I'll grab one of these guys. So yeah, see, we have no transition on those eyes, but here a little more in the way of transition. And we can go over that as many times as we want to clean things up. Yeah, see there, the Gauss rifle thing was in pretty good shape already, but even this still needed a little bit of lightening up. There's part of me that's curious what would have happened if I would have made the interior of the rib cage glowing. That could have been fun. So let's do our little thing around the eyes here. So that now starts to create, again, more glow and less light colored dot. And I can always go back in there. I feel like I need to restore my little light colored dot if somehow it got wiped away. Remember, we've got our metal medium to go yet. So yeah, so I'm just going to clean up this area here that's already, to me, looking so much more happy. Yeah, it really defines, really puts some nice definition on where the eye is. And I have to remember here too, as I start to fool around with some of these things, that the darker stuff is yet to be, or the lighter stuff's yet to be added. That's pretty much what a lot of this is adding things that are just lighter. Because the last episode, primary focus on the midtones. It wasn't exclusively midtones, just like this won't exclusively be lighter things. But I think you get where this is going. It's the emphasis is in one area. So once again, right here, I just think I'm going to add a little bit of just some dark right there. Real quick. I'll be curious to see what that antique gold does. That should be pretty intriguing. Now these guys, which I'm just still calling pariahs because these are really old GW figures from way, way, way back in the day. And I'm going to say that's a glowing thing. I hope it's on screen for you. And the eyes are a little different here. And I've been looking forward to actually seeing something more clear cut on these faces in particular. Because it was just looking a little bit, I don't know, it wasn't having the oomph that I was wanting to see. And we will now do that little around the outside here again, taking a few of these colors together using the Pro Acryl to hopefully, yeah, let's get this side. And I'm going to see if I can't just take some of this straight up white here. Take away a little bit. Let's see if I can't just drop this in. So there. A little touch here and then another on that side there. And now, sorry, like we did on the other one. So this will require a little bit of, and this, now there's another reason why we're using the, I'm sorry, the palette shifted around there. We're emphasizing more of that brownish color, well, because it is the opposite of our bluish green. It's almost like a red versus green. Yes, it's a light versus dark contrast, but even more important is that red versus green. I'm gonna go back in, see if we can't get another dot of white in there. And while I've got this, I'm going to experiment with something here. So this is the, that is interesting. So I wanted to play around here and see if I could make a different kind of metallic green for glowing stuff using the Pro Acryl. So, and like I said, I apologize if I'm throwing new things in a whole different portion of the video, but it's not like we've never used some of these tools before. So there's plenty of history in these tools. Here, let's grab a little bit of our fluorescent green too, throw that in there. And there, that just, I'm thinking about it. It's important to, there. Let's see what I can do. Yeah, looking to have a few things going on with the weapon here. Have it try and look as color shifty as possible. That's a very interesting way to put it. Kind of weird, but I'll go with that. Yeah, now it's starting to look a little bit less like just some green things slapped there, and all of a sudden I have to have a little bit of structure. Just a bit more. Okay, on this, on the leg here. And if I feel like there's just not enough of a metal look to it, I can always toss in more of the metal medium. It will make things lighter. There's other ways to sort of play with that, mitigate that too. So I think we've got him reasonably well established. Now we've got our other one over here. Let's see if we can't repeat the process here. Now this one, we've got the, obviously the scarab drone here. Let's see what else we can put on him. And then we'll go into our clear green. Just trying to get that on screen for you, and we now want to, that's supposed to have some kind of glow to it. Well, we can't just have a dead color around it like that. We are going to even go a little bit deeper into even some of the clear phthalo. Work around that a touch. Maybe even around the eye there, and go back into our lighter mix that has that touch of green to it. And we'll just find ourselves a few areas of light there. Give that bit of a shine. Now we're going to go into our de facto glowing green metal color. And I'm going to see what sort of transition we can get here. So let's go back into this. And I will snag a touch of that green metallic paint. Let's see. Yeah. Let's go on the other side here too. Now it's not going to be super light by any means. Let's see what we can do now with the face here. Now, things like these, where, remember, this is also a reclamation project. These figures were pretty well beat up and destroyed before they ever got to me. So we're doing the best we can with what we've got here. Because I think sometimes other people would... You're in a situation where you'd like to try and do that. Now, it's not necessarily a reclamation project on your figures that you got from somebody else, but maybe one of your old projects that you don't want to be going in and doing the stripping and all that sort of stuff. Maybe if you could just go back in and alter certain parts of it, it would be good enough. Here, we'll put some of this I don't want to, if I get too much of this lighter tone in there, well, it's going to kill the glow, obviously. Gotta make sure there's enough metal in there. And by metal, I mean metal medium. Just a wee bit of that. I'm going to see here. So I'm going to take some of the green metallic. I just don't know. I think you can see what's happening here. Going to go over that. It's similar to what we did here. And then the last, and hopefully this works just like it's been everywhere else. Yeah, that gets a little more shape. Now this one here, the little bit of a miscast on the face, or maybe it's just, I don't know, old glue, something on there just is making it a little wacky. Let's move on to this boy here, because this has a lot of glowing things on it. Let's get these. So, sphere, casting a glow there. We also have his cloak to take care of. That's probably, I think that's going to be our next segment, is just take care of his cloak and any other thing that has stuff like that. Now we've got plenty of light on this globe. I think we need to actually do some darker stuff here. And by darker, I mean just a little less light. See some there. It also sort of cools it down a bit. Gonna get some now on his cloak. So that's handy. I'll take my metallic green. We're gonna mix it with some of this lighter stuff here, and then see if we can't do a little line of lighter colors right along this rib cage. I'm gonna add some metal mediums, see if I can't go one level up. I can. Yeah. And I think as I maybe, well, at least is the plan, as I add this kind of, I don't want to call it extreme light, but I think you know where I'm going with this. We start to see some of the same traits that we would if it was standard non-metallic metal. The sharp edges, the sharp lines, the light to dark fades, oriented in sort of the same way as if they had been straight up non-metallic. Let's flip this like so. Now let's get our eyes in there. Now they may not need a ton of the lighter stuff here. I just might need to do the outer areas of these. Now it's tough because there's the staff in the way. There are things in the way that make it a little bit more challenging, to say the least. Alright, I think we have worked around that eye. Just have to do the same on the other. And now, as we've done on the others, this one I can't do quite so much of the non-greenish. I have to go with a, see, I'm taking some of the, there we go. This is some of the clear phthalo, mixed it with some of that dark silver. So it's still a metallic, but now there's a bit of shading, and I think you can see that eye is going to stand out a wee bit more than it had been, so that's not a bad thing. And I'm going to also play with a bit of lighter magenta just right here. And some of that. Yeah, that's the shark fin blue or something like that, or shark fin green. That was pretty fun, but also on the more translucent side. So I think now I'm gonna try and play around with it. This again, the metal medium and the pro-acryl there. Pro-acryl also makes a metal medium. I've got it sitting right around here somewhere. Oh, it's So we'll give this a shot too. See that? We'll try it out. If you don't try the things out, there's no real way to tell. It's not a real test unless you've actually used the thing. So we always want to try and do that. I'm gonna go with some of the metal medium again. We're looking to get some really intense highlights on some of these areas. Hopefully it shows up. I thought maybe I was off camera a bit there. But remember, the more the white you add in there, it's going to be more opaque, and it'll certainly be less metallic, which is why I've got to keep reaching for that metal medium there. So let's, yeah, I'm going to tie these together. What the heck? Wasn't going to initially, and then I see that maybe that's the best plan. Now let's move on to this guy here. And the same set of steps. These eyes really do need to be brought out here. They're just kind of nothing going on there. So I'm going to fill in the whole thing with my lighter white, and now we'll start to go over around the edges of that with this green. And after that, then we'll go in with our metals. Again, just trying to work this in on the screen for you here. And we got to play around with our these coils in this too, just like we did on that first one. See if we can't just get a few of these lighter lines in here. It'll just enhance that glow effect. I'm also, you can see I'm doing that a bit on the weapon itself. We're going to magnify a few lights there. And then we're again grabbing our metal medium here. And this is the area where I ripped it away from the, I had to open up this whole spot over here. Now this is that, I don't know if it was antique gold or no, it was tin metal gray. Let's see what that does. I have no idea. We're going to find out right now. So it is a bit of a lighter color, but also has some, I don't want to say gold necessarily, but a little more like that. And here's some of that purple. That's the metal color there, again from Green Stuff World. And it is very translucent. I mean, as in very, very, very translucent. Alright, working around the eye sockets here with that darker tone, which hopefully sort of anchors in that green that we had there. Yeah, the eye sockets on this one are way deeper than a lot of the other ones. I don't know if that's just a artifact of just how it's kind of beat up and horribly put together. I don't know. But now I'm gonna add a bit of my clear green / creature caster green. I'm going to go with some of this on the helmet over here on the other side to get some kind of reflected light there. The other thing that I am noticing is with these metallics, and these are the Green Stuff World metallics, even on the wet palette, I don't want to say they start to dry out, but they'll get a little bit of a skin on those. So just an observation, something to be aware of. I'm sure if I closed the wet palette or whatever, and the moisture would get into that and probably reactivate those, the skin would, I don't know if it would go away, but maybe not form so quickly. All right. I think we're starting to work our way through this pretty well. I'm just going to go grab the Necron Destroyer real quick, and we'll hit that and do some of the same things to it. All right. Well, first things first, I want to get some of this in place. Kind of reestablish a few darks in places. Now here we still have to do the same kind of thing to this, but it has a whole bunch of things going on. It's got this eye, but then it's got all of these things happening here. So we got to manage this thing. As well as this. It's another sort of a glowing thing that's going on. And if this is another, I don't know, do I want that to be a glowing conduit? Probably not. So I'm stealing a little bit of that green, the bright green metallic there. Let's go even more with our metal medium. Gonna throw a few lights in places here. You can thin that down with water, but when you do that, you really mess with your coverage a lot. It's always that balance of what you need it to do. Now here, this is gonna have some coverage. It's definitely covering more than I expected here. A good thing, not a bad thing, but yeah, let's go with some of this over here too. It's the Pro Acryl that's in there, really does make a difference. So let's not forget our metal medium that we're adding into that. I know a lot of this is, I don't think you can even see it, so I won't necessarily play around with that too much more. Like so. Again, thin this down as much as I can, but hopefully not lose my metal effect. And I realize, again, we're supposed to be working on greens and this and that and the other, but I need to see what's happening here. It's an important series of little highlights here that this will affect other things that I want to do, say with the freehand, with whatever. I need to see how far I'm going to go with some of these lights first. I'm going to go back. Here again, we've got our greens. It's the clear green, the clear phthalo green. And it ends up almost like a bit of a glaze. We're going to do the same thing that we've done with the other eyes here. We've got, again, this. It's another one of these glowing conduit things here that we're just gonna hit it a few times. There's some of the clear green. Now, where's, here it is. I was looking for my sort of metal medium green. So that if need be, we can have a little reflection thing going on there. On this symbol here, try to working on the, trying to get the light that's sort of reflecting its way up here. At least, I think that's what it's trying to do. Going to get me some darks there. Because we've gone light, 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 lots of lights, and now we're working middle tones here, really. When you think about it, what this is, certainly not any kind of a shadow color. It's the clear green, so it has that translucency to it, always good. And I'm going to see if I can't. I'm going to try and do some shading. That's good, yeah. Wanted to have some of that, and we're going to do that up here too. And along here. So I get taking the metal medium with my, we need a little more here. And with the clear green, almost a semi, for lack of a better term, almost semi-glaze. So I think we are starting to, now we're starting to get some positive things going there. Now I'm just going to, I'm just looking for something that's dark here. This, maybe some brown liner here, something like that, something dark. I've just got some funky edges here that have to be fixed now. Like that. Not really, we're not trying to do any kind of black lining or anything like that. Just, this is sometimes where the metals, where they make things thicker. Because remember, what's the brown liner? It is a very thin paint, so it's making this really easy. Whereas sometimes doing the metal stuff can be difficult. I'm going to take a little bit of that phthalo green clear. Just work a little more definition here around the eye. Here, I'm just going to go with that darker tone. Sometimes just the dark is the better option, and then there's going to be other times where when it doesn't really seem like it should be the case, you're actually better off going with something that's light. Go figure. That's just a really very dark gray metallic. And I'm going to play with this here. This, again, that's the tin metal gray, I think it's called. And you can see I'm starting to almost fool around with a bit of a horizon line here. Remember the acrylic one that we did? That was in one of the live sessions. That was sort of a little bit of a training ground for this, even though it was standard non-metallic and not the TMM, as we'll just call this. I'm just going to say it's true metallics. That's the easiest way. Just the easiest way for me to think about it. And again, I'm sorry if that wandered away from you a little bit. There we go. A little bit more. And now we've got to get some intensity back into these. We darken them down, no problem. But I also, yeah, they have to have some kind of emphasis to them. Can't just be semi-light. I have to commit to some brighter areas in these. And then we do that little dot thing. Remember what we were doing before? In an earlier episode. Again, metal medium into this. Sorry, the palette keeps crawling around. Looking to draw in the few highlights here. Let us play with a touch of the purple up here. Because we don't have a whole lot of color shift working. We've got, well, at least not up here. We have some of it down on the rest of the carapace there. I want to see what happens if I can get some of this, some of the blue right next to some of the reds here. Yeah, because that's going to give us maybe more of that color shiftiness. Again, another highly technical term. Looking to get some kind of shading in on these. Now these, I'm thinking, yeah, I've got to stay away from the greens on those, but not necessarily my later blues. So you can tell it gets a little bit of a skin on it. And it's only been, well, it's been around 40 minutes, more like 45 minutes since I put it out on the palette. So that's something good to note. And it has been a little while that we've been working on this now, so I think I'm going to move on now to some of these other areas that we talked about, like the cloak there. Because we've got our pretty well managed to get the these sort of glowing things reestablished like this. So that's the next thing we'll do. We'll continue with the... Here, I just want to... While I'm right here, while I'm thinking about it. Yeah, so we'll see what we want to do freehand-wise here. And on the cloak right here, as we just knock some stuff over. And we'll play around with this cloak, and we'll do that next. Let's play with the cloak on this Necron Lord here. Now we've got some of our non-metallic stuff here. So we get a little brown liner, a little bit of the... There with some of our clear green. It's not going to be terribly fancy here. I think it's best if this stays as dark as possible. It'll set off the metals a little bit better. In fact, I'm even going to go even that much more towards the dark. Going to do some of our green here, and I also think I want to keep this more of a grayish green too. I don't want it to be too warm because that's going to really look an awful lot like our... Yeah, see, it's almost more of a... I don't want to say a camo green, a cool camo green, but because we've got some of the clear green in there, it's just gonna allow some of that darker undertone to show through. I don't think I'm going to fool around with freehand on this. It's, as we talk about all the time, I don't want these videos to get super long, and it is essentially army painting. Now, as I get into the Golden Demon projects and such, that's going to be a little different. We will have to invest more time in things that maybe you haven't seen me showing that much on. The basing, everything's got to be a little more precise. I thought that could have some interesting value for you to see, actually. And with the Adepticon, it seems like it's a long way away. Not so. It's, well, let's see, usually towards the end of March. That's not that many months away. And there's still many other things going on between now and then. So we want to get those Golden Demon projects working. Here, let's do a few more. Now, of course, here I've got the object source lighting on this side. So let's really not play around too much over on this end of things. Let's kind of call it at that, but I'm thinking of using the same set of colors over here, potentially. Just gonna get a few lights in there, and then we'll just kind of call that as it is. Remember this one here, we've got this little line of the freehand that goes down here. I don't know, I want to see if I can play with that here. Down this. Do I want to do it with the orange glow? I'm not quite sure yet. We will figure that out. I'm going to take some of that. Again, the green there. And maybe I'll give it a touch of... And that's the... I could use the green liner in this, but we're sort of making a dark green metallic here. We'll just throw this right along here. Do these two strips that run down here. Keep those as straight and level as we can. This is also a somewhat transparent color. I was hoping it would be, because maybe some of my metals from underneath show through. And maybe even on this side. I'm going to play with something like this. And I'll let this dry here. And there we go. Possibly do a similar thing here. Essentially giving a mark to something that's supposed to maybe have a little more significance to it. So we'll let those dry. And I'm going to actually do that. I think we'll do that on one of these. And we're going to choose the one that is actually farther away from the glow. Yeah, I wasn't so sure about this. I kind of had a notion that might be interesting. Alright, and do I want to do that on one of these? Oh, why not? I think it helps to tie them all together, because remember we talk about this all the time. How do you tie together disparate figures? And that was another reason why we really focused in on this, because talk about disparate figures. And a lot of these poses just, and the figure types, really, really different from each other. Okay. Let's see if we've got... So that's relatively dry there. Other purpose for doing this was to bring that orange, and we'll use the Pro Acryl orange here. The whole idea of this is to bring the base, that orange from the base, up towards the miniature itself, because we have plenty of orange on the base. We have none on the figures. That's not really an ideal arrangement there, so here let's just throw out a bit of this yellow here, and I'm just trying to get my... Here, let's see if I can't get that into an area where you can see it too. Okay. Spin this. Ah, now I can see it, sort of. My hand, unfortunately, is blocking it. You could see it if my arm wasn't sitting right there. And now the value of the Pro Acryl starts to become a little more apparent. Nice and opaque. I'm going to fill in those dots later. Gonna just try and get some water into that orange. Thin it down just a bit. Trying to work some kind of the Necron symbols here. The stuff that I've seen on our bases. right. One more symbol here. And we've got lots of the circles there. But and we'll go over this again. This is basically we're sketching in our design here so that we can work it some more later, get some lights on it. I don't necessarily know if I want it to be glowing per se. Not too shabby there. So didn't take long to do that. Like I said, we can go over the top of it later and make some parts fit lighter, as the case may be. Let's go right here, other line. Okay. Yeah. Boy, I'm trying to get it where you can see it and where I can still get a good angle on this. That's what's underneath there. And this is a very typical sort of Necron symbol here. We've got our circle there, and then one sort of central long line that comes down, and then these shorter ones. And these are the sort of symbols that we are going to then replicate on everything. I know they're a little tough to see here. I mean, maybe I'll turn up the contrast. That could help too. So sorry if there's some quiet points here. That's me actually holding my breath, trying to do that little trick of the slowing down of the heartbeat. Alright, so actually I'm going to turn up that contrast just a bit. So see what we've got going there. I have to thicken this other orange line on this side. And then, well, we need to do the same over here. Right along the edge of that. Okay. Some symbols on him. Now I realize that in every, what would you say, in the army books, they will show you little tidbits of the language in effect. I know I did that with my Lizard Man army. Once I actually looked at whatever the glyphs that stood for certain letters. And I had some fun actually creating some names for my guys. Okay, I'm going to set this aside. We'll let that dry. Here he is. So we've got our Necron Lord. We start with our quick little, again, the orange lines here. This is a real simple way of just adding something more to the Necrons here. And it's just these same sort of repeated shapes. Obviously, as you get to these smaller figures, less are required. See, just a couple of hits there, and we've got this guy. Why some of them are marked more than others, that's something to figure out as you're making your army. To me, that is the fun. I've got to figure out with the Ossiarchs, okay, if I'm going to have significant freehand, what's it going to be? Why is it going to be there? Okay, I'm just trying to start this off here. There's a little bit of excess paint on that. Wanted to clear that out of there. So again, sticking with the same kind of hieroglyphic type approach. Okay, we've got this guy now to do. Yeah, I think it gives these shoulder pads a little more, something a little more interesting to look at. You can see it's only a matter of a few minutes. We've been playing around with this. It doesn't have to be super difficult. And I know this is a bit of a switch from what do we usually do, where the freehand stuff is started as soon as possible, but here we just had to, there's other stuff that had to be done first. Let's see if we can't play with one of these. So I think I still have, good. I still have some of this left. And we'll throw that on his shoulder there. Now let's just get some quick outlines around it. Now while that dries, now we have to do some kind of shading. We either have to darken this orange down by doing a glaze over the top. What I am going to do is grab a little bit of the white in here. Going to go back to this guy. And we will bring out, so you'll see it pretty quick. I think it's going to show up on camera right away. Yeah, see how that got brighter there? We are going to do a similar thing here. And then on some parts of our banner, not the whole way down. See if I only do parts of it like this. See, I'll get my those smaller circles involved. Just hints of it here and there. Don't overpower it. Don't overthink it. That too much of a good thing is generally too much of a good thing. Once again, in here. So it's a bunch of these little circles, the dots, and then those interconnecting lines, a big part of it. We'll do the same emphasis on those circles, but we're gonna, I think, stop reinforcing those lines there. We got the shoulders, well, the shoulder here. Once more, we will play around with these. Again, the dots, the lines. And let's say, okay, you have a little overshoot or something like that. Oh, look, we still have our green. We just go to the other side, fix that up real quick. Not a problem. We'll move on to the couple other guys we did this to. So this one's pretty much now ready. And you can see as you look down on the base, as I hold him this way, you know, we can see all those circles and the lines and everything. Okay, I mean, it's just a couple of quick brush strokes. That's all it takes to go from nothing there to oh, what's that? And when it comes down to that, that choice of best painted army or whatever, and when as judges we saw freehand, and especially on more than just the one figure, that one special champion figure that you're going to invest all your time in and basically leave everything else mostly primer. No, we're going to notice that. We're going to see that, and we're going to look to the person that actually went in and try to do some kind of special element on, if not every single figure in the army, as close to that as possible. And now, as you can see, look at how, look, you can see the base there, and now you see the thing on the shoulder. This is another version of that. If a color goes somewhere, it must go everywhere. Let's make sure. Yeah, I'm gonna sort of fix up the circle a little bit there. Yeah, I could have given these guys orange glowing eyes or whatever. Yeah, there's just so much green everywhere. And we say, you know what, that's just too much green all over the place. We do the eyes in a glowing orange. Heck, the weapons could have been a glowing magenta. But we've done some glowing magenta. It's not like we haven't worked with that at all before. And I was trying to go a little bit classic on this, but with a twist. Now I think that just about takes care of, yeah, everything with the freehand stuff. I think next what I want to do is see what happens with some of these other highlights on these areas. This is going to be more of the metal medium that's involved in some of those brightest highlights, but we need to get those in and then sort of backtrack maybe with the time that's left for some more color shifting type stuff. But yeah, there's your freehand that sort of ties them into the bases. So we'll be right back with some highlights on the middle next. So the next thing I want to do is get into some of those brighter highlights. Now this will be, I don't want to say trickier, but it's certainly going to be different than the typical process because we're mostly going to, at least for now, be working with just straight up metal medium. I will try to mix it with a few things here and there, and I've thinned it down a little bit, but you can't thin it down too much. It will lose its, I don't want to say cohesiveness, but just lose its effectiveness as that sort of highlight color if you thin it down too much. So what I'm trying to do is, see those little lines we're trying to get there on your rib cage. It's much easier to do with regular standard non-metal paints, I'll tell you that for sure. There's no doubt about that. It is not quite so easy doing that with this because it has, as we've talked about, the paint has a little bit of a thickness to it. It's, look at that. See how thick that is right there? That's why a lot of it's ending up on my thumb here. Just trying to brush that away. This is the trickiest part that I've found with the metals is trying to get the, well, for lack of a better term, the extremes on either side of the spectrum when you're trying to get a highlight or when you're trying to get a really deep dark. In either instance, it can get a little weird with the metallic paints. Now, they're just never going to be my favorite thing to work with. I'm a watercolorist by trade and training, oil painter, and you didn't use the metallic paints. Now, it doesn't mean that I will completely ignore the possibilities of the metallics, that's for sure. Now, can I, and this is, I think you can see where I'm going here. I'm trying to get some little bit of an edge going here. That'll show some nice shadow to it, but boy, it is way more difficult to do that with these metallic paints. And hopefully this sort of conversation like this, it helps people to understand the mindset here. Well, why not do this, or why do you do this? And I try to offer as many of those explanations as I can. Sometimes I don't necessarily think of it or whatever. Alright, so let's see if I can't. I'm looking to get a few highlights on the symbol, a few highlights on the face here. And I think we did manage to find a few. On this side, there's not much there interest-wise, so I'm gonna, yep, I'm just gonna drop in some of that purple there. We're gonna drop in some on the face. We're gonna hit some over here too. That one is just so much more intense than the others. It's weird. I have no idea why. Really no good idea why that is so different. And some of the other ones that are just way more subtle. I think this one has a decent amount of, some of them just have more highlights than others. I may actually have to turn down, I think I'm going to do that here in a second, because, well, what we're doing is going to really drive the camera nuts, so we're going to cut down on the brightness here, and then see if we cannot work in a few highlights here, especially on this guy. I think you can see where we're doing this. Couple more along here. So the metal medium really does make a fantastic highlight stuff. I've tried using just, okay, bright gold or super bright silver, whatever the name happens to be. And so far, nothing has the ability to highlight like this metal medium does. So I have not found anything that really comes close to it at all. Like I said, maybe with the Ostearchs we give the metal medium from Creature Caster a try, see how that goes. And remember, there is the Green Stuff World set also has metal medium in it. There is a metal medium in that set. It seemed to be a little bit different from this. I gave it a try, and it's workable, that's for sure. I think this one had, much like the fluorescent paint did, it tended to be a take-all-comers sort of paint. It worked in every situation, whereas the other ones would be really good in a certain one and then go in another. So here, again, trying to find that, some of those linear highlights, some kind of right next to the other. Okay, let's move on to another. Now we're gonna go back down to just a regular old Necron warrior here. And now that I could see that right away. That's really interesting. On the last one I was doing, no matter how light I seemed to make it, just didn't seem to show up. And now here on this guy, really shows up, boom, right away. So maybe on this one I just hadn't developed the lights quite as much as I had on some of the others. Again, we've got our Necron symbol here, typical one. I'm so tempted to play around with more of the, throwing more of the blue in here in some of these areas. Then do even more of that color shifting stuff. That could be really fun, but then it does start to maybe take away from what's supposed to be the main center interest on this stuff. It is supposed to be the glow. Well, we have all this stuff going on with the bases also. We can't forget that. So at a certain point visually, when do we give the viewer just a little place to kind of chill and maybe not bombard them too much with everything? Because these two things, they don't look all that different, but much like the fluorescent paints, the metal medium just has that ability to really shine. But I am going to go into just a touch of the purple here. See what I can do with a lighter, little lighter version of that. Then maybe even a touch of this sort of antique gold color and then back to the metal medium. Bring it out a few places here. And yes, I'll even use my finger to blend some of it. What have we here? We have a zone that needs a little something, and I'm going to throw in, see, a little touch of those, the blue line there. Because why not? I think that just needs to be darkened down. So again, we're changing things subtly here on the fly. Now back to some highlights. This guy has some more highlights to him than the last one did. In many areas, not everywhere though. And hopefully as we do this, that starts to bring out those eyes a little bit. We're going to go along some of these surfaces here. We've got to lighten that up a touch. So I'll try and, I believe, boy, I'm so tempted to try and set up the spinning video thing, but I would have to, at least at this point, tear down an area that's all set for a basing video to be able to film that, so I apologize. If I can, I'll try and just make a little separate video or something of these where it is just kind of spinning and rotating on that tray, and maybe you can get a sense of the color shift that you just can't get in static photos. But that sort of an effort would just take way too much time that I don't have right at this moment. Because sometimes if I don't think it necessarily shows up 100% on camera, I just try and talk you through it. Because then at least you have the concept, the idea that I was doing at the time. And then as you do it yourself, you say, okay, yeah, now I see what was going on there. So yeah, no matter what size brush that I play around with, inevitably it's always just like the fluorescent paint. It gets a little bit thicker. I think we'll just do sort of a final details segment after this and see what happens when we do the gloss stuff over the weapons again. So yeah, so we've got the purple kind of juxtaposed with the blue. Speaking of that blue, I really do enjoy this. That blue there, it is so, it's got a lot of impact to it. So you'll definitely see some of that. Well, as much of this as I can get on the Aussie arcs there. Now, we have actually done, when you think about it, a direct comparison with the Necrons, because we have done the non-metallic work, at least on the destroyer there, and now we've done that same, something pretty darn close to it, but in metallics. Let's get to our Destroyer Lord here. I think has a bunch more highlights than some of the other figures. Now this, I may even have to go back in, and I think I will, with some darks, because we've got plenty of, we need something to separate those segments of this. There we go. And this is the weird thing about working with these metals. This idea that I have to constantly be going back and forth and back and forth. So we're going to make this darker here. Let's see if we cannot bring in highlights in the top edges of these spines. Our Necron Destroyer for sure has a whole ton of highlights that we've got to do. And remember, I put minimal stuff on the underside there because it's not necessarily going to show very much. I'll also have to glue that to the base. So we'll do that. Here, let's see what we can do with right here on the face. So you get a few lights over there. Over here on the hand, I just don't want to kill all that interesting sort of lavender, purple, whatever that's going on there. But this one, it's the first one that's open enough for you to really see what's happening on a few locations, and I want to try and take advantage of that. And remember, this figure is metal. The only figure that was plastic, well, most parts of the Destroyer were, and obviously the Necron Warriors were plastic. Those always have been. Maybe at a certain point I try and get some other some newer Necrons to fool around with. Oh, what the heck. Let's play with a little bit of the blue there too. So this is the interesting thing I've seen. I suppose what I'm taking out of this is maybe just set up less of the metallic paints here because they want to start drying and setting up. So just throwing in that touch of blue. And I'm going to utilize that over here actually as a way to get some contrast with my orange. Sort of doing a little bit of, I don't want to say cheating there, but we'll fudge the results a bit. And up here, I'm just going to go with some of the blue over the top. And as much as I'd like to take hours and hours refining this, we just don't have that. We do what we can. We'll see what I can do here with, again, the metal medium. And for those other folks that are, maybe you've worked with metals all your painting life, I guess we'll call it that. So you might just take to this far easier because you're just used to some of those weird little technical things that happen with metals. Whereas for me, it's all very new. Not a lot of companies, I realize it's a little more prevalent now, but not a whole bunch of companies have made the metals that have colors to them. I know Reaper used to have some really interesting metal paints that had color, and I think they're starting to do that again. Let's just say they came in jars like this back in the day. Alright, now this guy, okay, we're going to hit him with some of our lights here. But then, I'll grab, that's the purple there, we'll let it mix, almost a little bit of a wet blend there. And now, try and get some highlights in on this scarab drone. I'll just refer to it as that. It is really difficult to get in. So here, I don't know if you can see that. I'm just trying to get that sort of a highlight thing. Is just, it's so easy to do with the non-metallics, but on this, I have to say it is much more difficult. Okay, just settling up some of those lines there. Now let's see what else we can do highlight-wise on this. And then the last thing, at least as far as trying to get these highlights going, that'll be the destroyer there. You certainly need to get a couple of these brighter highlights on the metal, but sometimes then we have to go back the other way, darken some things down. But I'm really starting to see that actually with these metal paints, and this is on a wet palette, keep that in mind. They have a tendency to dry out because yeah, that's, well, I'm sort of reactivating it. So okay, maybe that was a false alarm. Disregard. Couple more of these edge lights here, tops of the legs, and then maybe a line that goes down here. Because we had a lot of the color shift stuff going on, but not necessarily. This is where we had to add in those final lights and darks. Now they almost, fingers are almost a bit more like claws on these guys. Interestingly enough. So let us proceed on to this guy. And I can just straight away see some of the areas where we want to increase some highlight action. It would be interesting to actually, in some of these, like at the end of the weapons here, to take some weathering powders and do maybe some kind of scorching that way. I don't think I'll do that here because now time's a wasting. Even this video is starting to push 2 hours already. And I was thinking that it was not going to be too long. And next thing you know, it ends up being actually longer than I thought it was going to be. Now, along the edge of this vent here, let's get the bottom part of that. Maybe a few of these ribs in between. And let's see just how light we want to go with this. I've noticed with the metallic here, when you try and blend it, you almost have to kind of cross hatch it a little bit. Where are we at here? I know this is just it's a huge blinding mass of bright metals in your face. Now here I'm sort of, one thing with the metal medium is that it can be, if you feather it out, it can be somewhat on the translucent side. Now I guess the flip side of that is it's going to be, for all intents and purposes, kind of devoid of color. So that's why we've once again grabbed one of the turquoise metal colors. And then back to the more of the purple color here. Working this back and forth. Going to sneak some into a few areas here on the shoulder pad there. Now let's get some of our lights up here. Just a few. Yeah, it's kind of devoid of anything. It has no color, it has no shading. But that's still got to stay, that still has to stay somewhat dark. So I'm going to see what happens. Nope. I'm going to go towards the pinkish purple color here. We're going to add a bit of our metallic medium to that, or metal medium to that. And let's get the back of the head here. That needs something more. Again, there wasn't much happening there. Let's go to some more of the metal medium to see if we can't lighten that up some. And finding some of these little highlight edges on the rib cage. So even like in here, I'd love to spend more time playing around here with some more subtle things with the green here. Like we got the turquoise stuff. All right, this is the metallic paint, and see we can play with some of that here. Or I could take my the metal medium and this. And play with that here. So many possibilities of things. So little time. Once again, I want to get a little bit of that blue into here. I want to get some of it into here. Now, what can we do? Might take a little bit of this and maybe some of the turquoise together. But I do see how it gets a little wacky over time here. Now, maybe if the wet palette was more wet, that solves that issue. I don't know. I'd have to play with it more. But what I'm going to try and do is actually play with a little, see, a blue-purple shift in here. See if we can't get a little blue on the see, I think you can see some of that blue there. I hope you can. And I'm trying to add a little more of that into here. Now this other side could use some of that too. See, we've got it here. Now let's get some. It'll be tricky, but let's see if we can't position a little slice of it right into here. Okay, I think if I hold it this way, you might be able to see some of this little bit of a subtle, again, that bluish turquoise work its way in. So much fun. Ooh, let's see if we can't. So we got the purple ends there, and then poof into that. Again, a touch of the bluish color there. So in some ways now I have, and unfortunately I just put it off to the side, but I had been looking at my regular non-metallic metal destroyer that I did, and this is really difficult to do something like, see where it's got that blue shimmer to it. I'm trying to use the things that, well, what is it? Use the stuff that's do what it does best or whatever. I'm trying to do that here, except it's still in the process of, well, learning what does what best. So you will just have to be patient with me as I go through my own little voyage of discovery here. And then hopefully maybe if we've done this together, it just makes it easier for you to say, you know what, he's willing to try something he's never ever tried before and make a whole stinking army painting series. Well, maybe not. Hopefully it doesn't stink, but make a whole series about it. I mean, this is what, 13 plus hours of me going, holy smokes, what the heck do I do with this stuff? So hopefully this works. Hopefully this works. Maybe this will work. Maybe it won't. And just maybe, it gives you that little extra boost that you need. Just give things a shot yourself. It's interesting now. at first I was not enjoying painting the destroyer here with the metallics. It was not something I was enjoying at all. And actually, it's been kind of my favorite now. I'm really enjoying all of the stuff that's happening here. Let's not forget our metal medium here. A lot of the green, that yellow green from Creature Caster has sort of snuck its way in there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose I can try this stuff on a Creature Caster figure too. Speaking of Creature Caster. It might not be on the entire figure. It could just be on parts of it. Alright, time to get some. We are seeking some highlights on this area here. Do I have, yeah, I got some white left, maybe. That could be used on our little eye things, diodes, whatever those are. So yeah, found all kinds of wild and crazy metal things going on here. My goal is here to, okay, I think I can do some brighter things in here. But maybe that's a little too bright, so I'm toning it down. This is some of that tin metal. That's the Green Stuff World stuff. Green Stuff World stuff. We can always tell when it's getting late. Or getting to be too late. Because, yeah, when you're working on about 3.5 hours of sleep over the course of a couple of days, word salad happens. Gonna go quickly back to my blue over here. And then go the other way with some of the purple here. It sort of blends wet into wet a little bit there. I mean, yeah, you could airbrush all this stuff on or whatever. But then you'd have to either mask a bunch of stuff off or paint this first and see, okay, is that what I want? To me, I just enjoy the brushing of the stuff on there. It's always going to be that way, I think. You know, for those that airbrush is their first choice, well, it's obviously going to be the opposite. Obviously, will be a whole different mindset. Alright, so I'm going to say, oops, nope, almost forgot. On this side over here, some of those little edge lights to bring out that spine area. Couple little lights in here. Not a bunch. So we're going to call that a good, and then we're going to break out our gloss medium stuff here and hit some of our weapons and other things. See what happens with that. So we will be right back. Right back with our glossy stuff here. Let's finish this off with our glossing effect on the weapons. We're using just the art code here. You could use the secret weapon water effects. You could use all kinds of different stuff, but we're just gonna go with this here and give these a nice healthy dose of it. Maybe even that. And as I said, I might even, who knows, as I'm waiting for all the stuff that I filmed to all the video files to transfer over, I might do a few final touches on some stuff that I really just couldn't reach on camera, or the light was just kind of bouncing off of it. Alright, so we've got our little orb right there, and now we're into our gloss weapons here. I do believe we did some glossiness on this too, so we'll hit that. And I think we talked about before, do you add some color to this instead of just doing it as a clear coat over the top? Do you do multiple coats? Alright, we'll just go the simple way here. Try and keep this from getting too complicated. Alright, anywhere else? Yeah, almost forgot this here. So, yeah, we did that on the other one. There. Couple more to do here. The nice thing is, let's say I don't really like the glossy effect. Well, I take some of the Army Painter Anti-Shine and I just paint right over the top of it, and it's not glossy anymore. And that solves that. And I might maybe do a second coating on this. Maybe I don't necessarily feel like it's giving me enough of a shine, or it's a little uneven or whatever. A second coat could level things out. And doing that thing with the weathering powders on the end of the weapons, that could give it, now you have a, what would you say, a very, very, very extreme flat matte texture right next to the shiny texture. The glossiness. Once again, you generate some extra interest by more than just lights and darks, more than just red versus green. And then there's one more. Actually, what I think I might do is take the Necron Destroyer off of his base, off of the stick, glue him on his base before I do this, because in all likelihood would probably just reach and nail the stuff that I just did, put a fingerprint in that, and that's not what we want to be doing. So we've got him, we've got his base, and with the hole drilled in there. So I'm gonna do first here is get my super glue, glue that to the base just to make sure it's not going to be flopping all over the place. There. Got to be careful though with the super glue around the plastic, because it will sort of frost it. You have to be careful about the super glue in that. Learned that the hard way with some, with not just the plastic flying bases, but also with, say, windshields on vehicles. Okay, so let's see if I can get this in here and get this extracted from here. So, yep, that was pretty successful. Could use a kind of a long, narrow pliers for this too. Just kind of used to using my So, yeah, handy little dowel rod. Now, I'm gonna snip off the end of that and so you can see like a little more. See that the purple and the green under there? Like I said, I might just clean that up a bit more. Alright, so that needs to be snipped off a bunch more. I wish I could have made this longer, or the hole in there a little bit deeper, but you do that, you're more likely to have you're going to expose let's use a little bit of a X-Acto knife for this. You'll see that pin sitting in there, and that's not really terribly fun to see that pin sitting in there. I'm just getting rid of some of the glue here. And I think we're just about good to go. Let's snip off a little more of this. So it still needs to be snipped off a bit more. And that's as much as I'm going to snip off. I'm not snipping off any more. Gotta make sure I got some that'll get down in the hole there. Getting him on there. Okay, so that's pretty nifty. And I'm going to set that aside for a second here. Should really let that glue settle up. While that happens, I might go back in here. And there's maybe some of these things on these weapons here where I can find some stronger lights and darks and color differences here. Now here's I have light versus light. That's not helping anybody. I have to decide, is this going to be darker or is this going to be darker? And I'm glad I went with that. But I'm going to see what happens when I mess around with some of these. So here's that purple metal. Yeah, see how now I've got just more differential there. Let's do that here. So this purple color here, maybe it just wasn't mixed very well because it wasn't showing too much when I tried using it last time. But now it's definitely having more of an impact. So I'm going to play with this a bit here. Again, while we wait for... I'm just going to wait for that other one to dry. Let's get some of our lighter metals in there too. Maybe even, yeah, let's let those mix together a touch. Like I said, you could kind of endlessly play around with this stuff back and forth. That's not always the best plan either. Yeah, I like this. I'm liking this dark purple here, so I'm gonna play with this in a few areas here. Okay, right here. See this, where this is on the top of the shoulder there? Why? Because it works nicely with that other, I think that's the violet color. I'd have to look at what it says it is. Kind of forgotten. I certainly want to do some of that on Mr. Scarab over here. And let's do that on the Destroyer Lord here. So this was a case where I thought I knew what was going on with that color, but I actually didn't because it just hadn't been mixed together. So it's really making a nice, not just a dark color, but something that plays very well with it. Wow, look at that. See that purple in there? Look at that. Okay. Right up until the very end of this, it seems like I'm just going to keep learning things. To the bitter end, we will learn. Now, which one is this? I'm going to see if I can't locate it for you here. It's this dark purple one. It might be this, the Persian violet. And yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, I'm positive that's what it is. So we will drop some of that in here now. There's another place I know I wanted to use it. Oh yeah, on this guy. Where is he with the the heavy weapon? Because it is efficient as a dark. And I needed some of that. There. I've been looking for something just like that, right in that area. And that may be, yeah, see here on the shoulder? Yeah, that, and even here on the head. Let's see what happens when we use it along there. I needed some dark there. Not just dark, but something that had a bit of color to it. And the same thing here. So this is now transitioning that almost magenta into a purple. And as always, remember you can mix these together. It's just like where I mixed Badger Steinerres primers with ghost tints and other things. You can mix those together. You can do that. Because I just did. Now that's a case where I like that green there. Might go back with some of that original green. Remember we, at the start of episode 4, we were playing around a lot with that. Yep, maybe that comes back out again here. So yeah, this was an entire color that was kind of denied to me before because I thought I had stirred it up really well. Turns out it hadn't been stirred up as well as I thought. Okay. Wow, that just makes a stunning difference. I am really amazed at what that does. Gonna get some of that again on his shoulder pad. So once again, it's going into that notion of the interference slash color shifting type stuff. Let's get a little purple onto that. But it's a bit of a cooler purple. Interesting. Now can I mess with that? Well, this could bounce around a little bit. I should really just leave this alone, but I only have so much time left on the video here, so let's just work with it while we can. We're thinking the same thought processes on the other guys here. We're just, you see how dark that purple is? And we're just scumbling that on to get a bit of just some shading there. Certainly some in here and even in these crevices, darker areas here on the shoulder pad, of course. So yeah, okay. Super glue definitely not holding there. So I'm just going to do this part off camera because that's just going to get a little too crazy there. But as I add the final bit of my purple here, I just want to say thanks for watching me through Series 13. Obviously, we've got Series 14 in the book, Series 15 underway. And you'll also see Series 16 and 17 begin later on this month. But I always appreciate the support. If you could, I know I always ask for the likes and such on the videos, but they do make a difference. They really do. And why not subscribe to the YouTube channel, because then when I do the live sessions, which are designed to supplement this, they don't take the place of it. They're not a rival to it. They actually fit together because there's some things I can do on those that don't necessarily work well on here. So yeah, look at all that nifty purple and blue and everything. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. I will catch you on the next series. I think we will have plenty of fun. Plenty of fun. So thanks again.